Right, good afternoon everybody. Welcome to this March meeting of the Communications Strategy Group. Are there any apologies for absence?
No apologies.
But you do need to inform us.
I do need to bring that Councillor Willett has decided that he will no longer be a member of the committee.
Which means go on.
I was going to,
Wow.
who is then? Because there's three of us, so we're qualified today.
And Rabina.
And
Rabina.
Rabina, yeah.
So we might need another one or two just to kind of give us a bit more resilience in case people are called away elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, but Louise has got a plan for that, which we'll come on to later. Haven't you?
Yes.
Yes. That's good. Right. Are there any declarations of interest? No? Okay, we'll move on from there then. Okay, meeting notes. These are the meeting notes last time because we were in court. It was just Margaret and me here with obviously Louise, Bethany and Paul. Therefore, do I sign these then?
Yes, please. Yes, those are the ones from the previous meeting, aren't they?
No, it's just these are the ones from the in-court meeting.
Oh, okay.
There's no signature place.
No, they don't get signed.
So I didn't familiar with these.
They're just notes.
They're just notes, indeed.
Yeah, so the notes, are we happy with the notes of the in-court meeting? Yeah, I don't think we can challenge them anyway, to be honest. Right, future newsletter, which is Appendix A. Actually, Margaret, you were saying we haven't got a slot on the agenda for reviewing the one that's just gone out.
We normally do, don't we?
I think it's on the next agenda, but I was about to say you can do it now, but we can't really add an agenda item, can we?
Not really, no. No. Let's, there isn't anywhere else on the agenda either to discuss what we were discussing this morning about.
I was going to cover that under social media.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
well, let's talk about that on the social media too. Well, we can be reasonably flexible. So once we're bringing in a whole new different things. So future newsletter, okay, Appendix A. Let me just clarify, have we got more article suggestions than we have pages?
Yes.
Right, that's what I thought looking through it. Okay, so we'll do the usual pages. Right, front cover, summer events, pictures, archive of Jubilee or Royal Visit image.
So we can do that. Since we wrote this, I've discovered it's likely we'll have to pay copyright if we want to use a, permission to use a Royal Visit from 1993 image. I don't know how much it will be, but I can find out.
Really? No.
I can find out before we get to the next one.
Okay.
How much it might be to do that.
If there are any images of the coronation in 53, that would be better. There's any Buckingham pictures of that?
Yeah, so if there are any, that would likely be cheaper. So we can look into that first.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, for me, more suitable. I mean, obviously, the Queen did visit and Derek was mayor at the time. We've all seen those pictures, I expect.
Yes.
So I'm just turn my phone off, it keeps beeping. But I mean, we can do that, but I think if there's something of an event in Buckingham around the coronation, I think that would be better. Do people agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then fallback is the picture of Derek greeting the Queen, picture of the Queen on her visit back in 1993, was it?
Yes.
So that would have been the 40th anniversary then of her coronation in 93.
Yes.
Maybe not at the same exact time, though, of course.
Yes, yeah.
I have to say, I was a little bit fed up with the Prince of Wales yesterday. It was St. David's Day and he was not in Wales. Not happy, but there we go. Margaret.
Can I just ask us, when do we expect this to be delivered?
I can just look that up for you. One moment. I believe it's the end of May, but I'll just check the date. So previously, last year, we'd pushed that date forward because of the election. and we moved it back so that it would have a better chance of being delivered before the Jubilee events. So the delivery date is so starting on the 27th of May, so it's still kind of over that Jubilee weekend.
Yeah, it'd be good if we could get these out pronto, or maybe social media to promote the digital copy.
We can. I spoke to, when I got the spares of the spring edition from Melanie, our contact from Short Door. She has said that if we ever need to bring them forward or push them back a little bit, if you can do that. So if we want to.
So if we can compact our schedule, and if Christina and the printer can work to that as well, we could try and move it 2 to 3 weeks earlier.
Margaret?
Yeah, I was just going to say, is it more straightforward or less straightforward with the new computer system? Because I don't think I know how to do it yet, but I think we can edit files ourselves, can't we?
Yeah, we can.
I don't think I've worked out how to do it. I need guidance from someone to know how to
We
do
haven't
it.
worked out a process yet.
We haven't worked out a process yet, but absolutely that is something that I want us to do, because it seems like that would make it a lot easier. It would mean we could compress schedules because we wouldn't need to all meet together in a room to do it.
Yeah.
So we could do, so you should all, if we share a document publicly with you, you should be able to open it on your computer at home, make whatever changes you want, and they should be saved automatically to that document. And then when we're in the office, we can look at it and we can see what changes you've made. I think we'll have to probably have some etiquette things with it where we turn on track changes so people can see what you've done. But we'll work on a procedure and making sure everyone knows how to do it before we send around the pack. And I definitely think we should try and do all of that remotely before the next meeting, so that we can get stuck in and do it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, editing things together it's very easy once you've got it set, Margaret. And you can also add comments. If you don't want to add a particular text, you can add a comment to it as well. So that will go in a sort of sidebar, as it were. And I've done that on lots of documents.
I've seen you do it, but I don't know how to do it myself.
I will definitely do some clear instructions so that everyone knows how to do it.
It's easier than you think.
Yeah.
And it is one of the advantages of the new system that we've got, which we couldn't do on the old system at all. Okay, right. So deal with page 1 then. Page 2, message from the Mayor. Obviously, that's your concern, Margaret. Have you got any thoughts about what you're going to say?
No idea at the moment.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, past events, 1.5 pages. Pancake race, food fair, green spring fair, annual town meeting. Do we need the annual meeting annual town meeting in there as well as the report on the annual town meeting?
No, I would say if you're going to have a separate article on the annual town meeting and take it out of past events, and maybe save half a page there.
Okay, all right. Current events, we're doing current events for the events that are near to, well, hang on, we haven't bottomed out when we're going to try and get this distributed. Should we aim for doing it a fortnight previous, so early May?
I'm very happy to try and do that, because I agree, it would be better to have it out before that Jubilee weekend.
Yeah, so we're looking for the 13th instead then?
Yeah.
So a fortnight before. Okay.
Are they all Jubilee events, picnic on the pitch, is from the market?
Yes, so over the 4-day weekend, we have Celebrate Buckingham Day on Thursday, Music in the Market on Friday, Picnic on the Pitch on the Saturday. On the Sunday, there's actually also the Civic Jubilee service, which we're now going to be promoting civic events as well. So that can go in there too.
Civic Jubilee service?
It's going to be a Civic Jubilee service. The church is organising it at St Peter and St Paul's. Okay,
so a bit like the civic service?
I don't know, but I have been informed that it's how I was informed some while ago, before my civic service,
right, okay,
that this was going to be happening in June. But that is the Buckingham Parish Church have decided that's what they're going to do, and they've informed us rather than discussing it with us.
Okay, I think
But I
that clashes.
I
Sorry,
think
go on,
there's a
Lauren.
lot going, I think a lot of churches around the country, I think they're being encouraged to do a civic service that day, but I'm not.
I think so.
Is it not a beacon thing or?
There's the
Beacon's on the Thursday.
Right.
And then the civic service is at 11 on the Sunday, and Sunday is also the day that they're encouraging people to do street parties.
Big luncheons or not they? Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's going to clash with that. I guess people can choose.
yeah.
And do we not have any events, current events after that before the next newsletter? Or does it all go quiet?
No, then future events is,
No. Yeah, but future events are for other newsletters, aren't they?
no.
No,
So
no,
this
no.
will be,
So what's the difference between current and future? Because they're all in the future at the moment.
because we always have that overlap period, we decided we would separate off one section and call it current events or something along those lines, so that people were clear that those events were going on around about the time the newsletter was being recorded. Just try and focus on those ones, and then future events is the next. So we'll have 3 sections, which is what we've done on the edition that's just been published. Do you want to pass it over?
Yeah, we decided this a couple of meetings ago.
Yeah, okay.
I think.
It might be the one you missed.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we thought it was just a way of making sure we didn't miss things in a way.
Yeah.
If we describe future events, and by the time they get their copy, it's already gone. It didn't sit right, so therefore we've invented the category of current events.
But future events could be in the same
There's-
newsletter period.
Yeah, they're still in the
Right,
same
yes,
newsletter.
okay.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the summer one goes right up to the dog show.
Right.
I can't see where that is, Marble silly.
It's the purple
Just
section.
just there with your thumbs. Just there.
Oh, right, yes, sorry.
So we reckon that's about 4 pages then on events.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the usual, we all use count, blah, 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 as to councillors and events diary. Okay, so that's 2 1/4. So what we're up to now is 1, 2, 6, 8 1/4. So we've got 7 3/4 left. Okay, all right. Okay, so grant recipients, 2 pages.
So we normally only do 3/4 of a page, but I wanted to do a little bit more this time, unless we think that's too much. Just because we have the new system this year, and it would be nice to give a bit more detail about the projects, because in 3/4 of a page, we just don't have space to tell everyone what all the different projects are funding.
Okay. Okay, is that agreed?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, okay.
Sure.
And what did your council achieve? These are reports from the 4 main committees. It's just the 4 main ones we do, don't we? We don't do report on this committee, do we? No. Or any others, just the 4 main ones, yeah.
Unless you wanted to add that.
No.
No.
No, there's no need. It would get very, very silly talking about the magazine that you're in, about how we produce the magazine. That wouldn't work. Okay, so that's another 4, so therefore we're up to 12 1/4. Right, so new staff members. You cool with that? Half page, seems like a nice thing to do. We've got 3 people to fit into that. Is that going to be all right? Room for photographs and a quick description?
It's only 2 really, because we've only got 2 new members of staff and then 1 person whose job role changed.
Well, I know, but nonetheless, we're going to give Nina a smaller photograph or something.
If you wanted 3 photographs, we need a bit more space than half a page, probably 3/4 at the least.
Well, why don't we do 3/4 of a page? Because that then sort of
Yeah.
then fits in then a little bit mathematically at least, doesn't it?
Okay.
If we do 3/4 of a page, that's a 1/4 page each, then that fits in with the, so then we're up to
And we've got 3 pages remaining.
13, we've got 3 pages remaining. So we got Spotlight on Buckingham Market, Earth Day Schools Project, Swan Trail, Advanced Details, Flood Eco Meeting. Right, so we can't have all of these. We can only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 3 of the 5 can more or less get in there. Unless we combine a description of the annual town meeting with the Earth Day schools. I am talking, but hang on a second. All right, Margaret, go on.
Well, I was going to suggest that because that's part of the annual town meeting,
Right.
And we've got 1 to 2 pages for the annual town meeting. Then
Yeah.
but that would be 3 pages altogether, and we don't need 3 pages,
No.
do we? So I'm sorry, I should have waited. I didn't know whether you'd seen my hand up or not. That was my.
I was coming to. I was just talking. I'm an extrovert. I think out loud. I don't think in here. I think out loud. Okay. So what we're suggesting is that the report on the Eco Annual Town Meeting should be 1 page to cover the outputs and the Earth Day Schools project. Do you think that's going to work?
I think we could do that.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of say 1 to 2 pages for the annual town meeting. So, you know, we've got to. We haven't really got that flexibility there because we've already run out of space, haven't we?
I think if we did.
1 page for the ATM and 1 page for the school.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's going to be scope to bullet point the main outputs from that meeting, and maybe a link to a fuller report.
Absolutely.
On the website, if people want to go into it in more detail.
Yeah.
I think 1 page, and with that around the corners or the edges, whatever, we can feature the eco art produced on the Earth Day Schools project. Yes? So that's 1 page. Okay, so we've got 2 pages left. I do think we need something on the flood report as to the main conclusions and what's going to happen. I'm not altogether much is going to change, having scanned through it. I don't know if you've got any views on that, Paul.
Yeah, it doesn't bring any money with it, does it? So that kind of says this is what you should do. It's a really helpful tool to have, I'm sure. We'll keep referencing back in the next 5-10 years probably. But part of that story is our community flood plan. So again, we have a community flood plan. Here it is. If you want to know any information about it, here it is. If you want to be a community flood volunteer, then we'll have another push on that now. So from our point of view, it gives us some space to keep pushing that because that is now part of the S19 thing.
Okay, so 1 page on the flood report.
Is that one for the summer newsletter or is it one for the autumn one?
What was it? Doesn't rain in the sun.
Well, there's a lot going on. I didn't know whether you wanted to swap it for something else.
I guess my view is, all right, in terms of what we've got here, the flea market and marketing month, we have featured that fairly recently. I'm not sure there's a need for another page on that. And I would kick that back to the autumn edition. I just think there's a lot of interest in the Section 19 report, and I think we will respond to it, but that's my view. Margaret?
Yeah, I agree. I think that we do need to put that in, even though, as you say, it doesn't take us very far, and it still seems to indicate that all these events are one in 100 years, even though they're happening every 3 or 4 years. And I didn't understand that at all. I do understand lies, damn lies and statistics, and statistically that may be true, but it's still a bit strange to me. But I think it's important information, and it may be that we put a link to the full report. Obviously, we can't publish the full report. We'd have to
QR code to the full report.
Yeah, that's something like that, so that people can get it, and also people are aware it's available. I think that is really crucial that we do that at our earliest opportunity. And as you say, the market stuff isn't time critical.
No.
If we have got space suddenly, we could possibly include that. And I think the Swan Trail, because of the way our newsletters go, we do need to be publicising that now, because we want people to buy into that project and produce and decorate or whatever it is. The Swan again, don't we?
All right, so I think we're agreeing, if you're agreeable to this, everybody, Martin, everybody, is we're going to bump the flea market article to the next edition. And we'll have the new staff members on 3/4 of a page, and we'll have the Eco Annual Town and Earth Day Schools into 1 page Flood report 1 page and Swan Trail 1 page. Yeah. So having swans this time, not otters.
We wouldn't have otters again, would we?
No, no. Will they float? Could we throw them into a duck race? Swan race down the river.
Please don't suggest that. They're a bit bigger, I think, than previous otters.
They're bigger.
I think
Oh.
so, yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
And how many are we going to have?
I don't know.
10 probably.
10.
Unless it goes really well, we get extra, but 10.
Okay, we've
So
got
same as last
plinths,
year.
as the plinths as well still. Will they work for this?
Don't know if they'll work with the new ones or not, or whether
I'm fairly sure we
we
made
have
our
still
own.
got them,
Yeah.
and we made them. So if we need to make more, then we'll make some more. It's not-
Okay.
It's an effort, our costing.
Okay. Well, it was really good last year with the otters. And repeating it again with the Swan Trail, I think will be lovely. So yeah. Right. Okay. Are we cool about all of that? All right. Moving on then to the ongoing development of the existing websites. We've got a meeting coming up, haven't we?
Do we have a meeting coming up? I don't think we've sent the invitation out yet because I asked Bethany to hold off until after we'd had this meeting. I spoke to them, the development team yesterday. Things are going really well at their end. And they've given us the information that we need to do the meeting. So I think we've gone for the 17th of March in the afternoon.
7th of March in the afternoon, right, okay.
And all councillors will be invited.
Okay, and we'll do it in here.
I thought I might do it on Zoom.
Okay,
Want to
all
do it
right,
here?
okay. Easy to look at other web pages on
Yeah.
Zoom, wouldn't
I
it?
think that's
Yeah,
That was my feeling, but we can do it in person. People
Okay.
prefer that.
I just don't know, I wouldn't know how to look at other web pages while I'm on a Zoom call, but anyway.
I'll do it for you.
I usually have 2 screens. You know, I have my iPad and I have a laptop, so
Well, you've sorted
possibly
it.
I can do it on the
Yeah.
laptop, on the one of them, the Zoom on the other.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'll share screen so that you
Yeah.
can
Oh,
see
I
what I'm
can-
talking
yeah.
about as we go through
Okay.
things. Yeah.
Is there any preparation in terms of people need to do before they come to that meeting?
There will be, yes, so I will send out some documents in advance of the meeting, probably a week beforehand, I'd say.
Okay.
The main things we're going to talk about in the meeting are the site plan, because we're definitely going to be making some changes to how pages are laid out. Talking to John at the company yesterday, he was talking through how the new committee and agendas and minutes pages will work, because that's one area where they're going to look initially quite different, but the functionality should be much better. And it also reduces the situation we currently have, which is double posting, which can sometimes obviously lead to an error. So if you're posting the same information to multiple pages, you can have a situation where someone just accidentally forgets to press enter on a link, and then the link on one of those pages doesn't work. So there won't be any of that. Everything will come from the same source. So that means that we shouldn't have any of those errors happening. So it's a good positive change, but I'll show you how that's all going to work. It also means on each committee page, we'll have pictures of all of the councillors who are on that committee. So it'll give a good sense of
Okay,
who's on each committee. And everything will just be very streamlined and clear to find who's on this committee, where are their recent minutes, where are their recent agendas, what's the terms of reference.
So will there be a
One
mock-up?
clear place.
on the website.
There is a mock-up I can show you. It's not specific to us. It's a generic website, but I can show you that one. And there will be a mock-up that's specifically of ours a little bit later in the process.
Okay, I don't need one now, but when we come to the meeting, I think it'd be helpful to have that. Will we have it by then? Or are you making decisions that will shape the mock-up?
We're really making decisions that will shape the mock-up.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
In which case, don't give us the template.
No. Yeah, so it'll be a different document that I talk through the site plan with you and the changes that we want to make. So the key areas within the office that we've identified as needing change was part of the committees, events, and what's the third one? Ticket sales.
Ticket sales, okay.
So they've also been working on the events calendar,
Yeah,
making
that
that.
needs work, yeah.
Yeah, so they've been working on that, and I should have an update on that for the meeting, so that I can tell you in a bit more detail. and about different, hopefully at that point, I'll have some different options for how we'll do ticket sales in the future, because it will likely change a little bit.
Okay.
Just on that, I do get a bit peeved when it says events calendar, because I don't click on it. But actually I can get the council meetings on there as well. And it's not really an event. It's just a calendar
Yeah.
for the council. It's not an events calendar,
Yeah,
it's just a calendar.
Council calendar.
Yeah.
council calendar.
Yes.
Because I think, oh, where are the meetings? Oh, I don't want events meeting, I won't click on that. So I then go and find somewhere else and I think, oh, yeah, that's what I need to click on.
So I think it used to be the events calendar, and then we added it all council meetings.
We did,
Yeah.
It's just the way it appears. So the company that we're using, they're basically doing a lot of custom work for us. So
Because we don't want it to look like all the other ones out there.
no, we want it to be our one and to do the
Yeah.
things that we want it to do.
No, go on.
I was going to say something and now I completely forgot what it was. So go ahead, John.
I was going to say, if we can manage to trick people to come along to council meetings, that's surely a good thing. Carry on calling it the events calendar.
I was just going to say that we'll probably have an early conversation about visuals. So things like we will probably only have one photo on the homepage. So we'll need to agree what imagery we
Because
want.
of loading times and stuff.
Yeah, one image to represent Buckingham, and then we will go and get a really good quality photograph that we're happy with to use for that.
Probably the old jail, isn't it, I should think, right, to kind of.
Well, I think we ought to put that on our agenda in communications, and we'll decide a new picture every time we meet.
Okay, why? Why
Why
new
not?
picture?
Well, because then it keeps the website different and
So it's
changing.
good to keep refreshing.
Just like
and
we,
changing.
we choose a new picture for the front page. We could almost
We could
keep
almost make it
one.
the same.
Yeah.
That would be a scarily easy
Oh,
thing to do.
well,
Same as the newsletter.
Yeah.
We can have a new one a quarter if you wanted.
Okay,
All right.
make sure we've got one that's pixel
Yeah, of course.
enough and all that sort of stuff. Okay, record that as a decision, Bethany. That we're gonna marry the online, well, the hard copy of Buckingham Town Matters with the website. And send it to you.
You're gonna have to let me check how easy that's going to be.
That's your problem, not ours.
Yeah, so these are all things we'll talk about in the meeting on 17th March. So that's sort of a heads up.
And you're
where we're
sending
going.
that invite out later on.
Today.
Oh,
Today.
Okay, fine with everyone, move on. Right, item 6 then. The Climate Emergency Action Plan Communications. I haven't got a paper copy of that with me. It is on my laptop, but I have read through it. It seemed like a good idea. Any comments on that from anybody? Margaret?
Yeah, because I've done, I've been visiting the Climate Emergency Action Plan a lot. I've never seen the acronym used before, not that matters, but I haven't seen that logo before.
We've just invented it last
Oh,
week.
right.
Fresh off the press.
Yes, yeah. New logo.
Well, I don't know what you see, though I read things in a strange way, and I read that as though that had been used for a while, and I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, I apologise if I read incorrectly.
No, it's the way I read things sometimes. It isn't the way every other person reads it.
So we did have some branding that we used when we got the electric vans, and we. So this is based on that, but slightly different. The colour palette works a little bit better with our other stuff, and that will just be used. So when you get the updated Climate Emergency Action Plan, we'll have the new branding on. And if we do something, we'll use them online, and we'll use them if we ever do anything printed. I'm not sure that we'll do lots of printed things for the Climate Emergency Action Plan, but occasionally it'll be relevant.
There was one point on the report though where you said that the impact was nothing because we were talking all digital. Not entirely, because some of it will be articles in the magazine as well, but that's just a picky point really.
Yes, that's a good point. Good point.
But it is what it is. Okay, any other comments on the report? Which I thought was great. It sort of began to crystallise what we've been talking about for a few months about how we can use comms to support our climate emergency action plan.
It's an actual plug on that flower, is it?
It is indeed.
Interesting.
Yes. So we have a plug on the branding on the van, so we wanted to include that.
Okay, noted. Thank you very much. Moving on. Social media. Again, I've read the report. Useful, interesting. I think it's written in English now as opposed to American English. It makes more sense to me now. Martin.
Met target, exceeded
Yeah.
at the bottom.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between met and exceeded? Is it just 10 over and then the other's 10,000 over?
That's a good question that I would describe as being clearly miles over, but not a specific percentage.
Oh, okay, all right. It's just I saw that there and I thought, okay, you know, that somebody just got bored with the word met. And it says, well, target, but who's setting these?
So there's a previous report which says how the targets are done. They are on a percentage of followers. So off the top of my head, I think a low impact is 10% of follower reach of 10% of followers. Medium is 33%, and then and then high I think is 100. So if you've got a high impact project, it has to reach at least as many followers as you have, and ideally more.
And the problem of not reaching that target? Is there any impact on staff?
Oh no.
What you wanted to do is pay, Martin.
I don't know whether there was
No,
some
impact, reflection.
You know, get your bonus or something like that.
No, we don't have goals. We don't have goals at that specific. Staff have goals like develop use of Instagram, for example, or that kind of thing, but we don't have anything that's that.
So we.
I was worried that, you know,
No,
certainly when it's a
No.
target, oh, hang on a second.
Okay, I get where you're going.
It's purely self-reflective.
That's all right then.
So if you haven't met the target on something, we've got to work out why that was. Is it because actually we pitched this completely incorrectly and we thought loads of people would be interested, but nobody was? Or is it because people were interested, but the way you presented it didn't reach the right people? And then we'll go back and look at it. So if you've met the target, it's fine, basically.
Is there anything that's unexpectedly popular, and if so, what's that about, and how can we build on that?
Yeah.
I want to see this stunt between 3 councillors. How about the pancake? What was this stunt?
That was Margaret and Martin and Robin.
Doing what exactly?
Oh, I remember now.
No, I still haven't found it. I've looked for
What-
it.
It's on Instagram Reels. Margaret and Robin had a small argument as prize for winning the pancake race would be the best chocolate egg. And then Martin came along and argued that he had in fact won, so it didn't matter. And then hit Robin in the face with the pancake.
It was set up for making
I don't think I've seen that.
I don't think anyone's seen that. Because I'm not on Insta anyway, is the problem. But yeah.
More than 1,000 people have watched that.
It's only on Instagram.
It is only on Instagram at the moment. I'm sure I will unearth it and put it on Facebook.
Yeah, put it on Facebook too.
Yeah.
I think some of those things, I mean, I know Insta's that kind of thing, but it would be good.
But equally, something that did really well at the food fair, after I wrote this report, Margaret had a go on the smoothie bike with her chains on. That went really well. That reached tons of people.
Because I haven't seen that time. That's on Instagram.
So you're an instant star. You don't know it, Margaret.
So it is really a platform where we're still playing and finding what we can do.
Okay.
But we can achieve really good reach among people that don't follow us. That's the advantage of it.
Okay.
So it's something we'll keep working on and we'll keep playing with and keep finding out what works.
So who's coming up with these ideas? This is good stuff, I think. It's development. Okay, all right.
So we'll talk about it before. One thing I would like to try and do, particularly for things that we categorise as high, is start doing some of this video further in advance. Because if you do it on the day, sometimes that's almost a bit late. So if we can do something a week before, we'll try and do that for some things.
Okay,
But obviously that requires a commitment from whoever's going to be it.
it might be worth prepping all the councillors on this then, so they're aware they might be called upon with their talents, be it cycling, be it slapping people with pancakes, or whatever the talents particularly are.
It's a very specific talent.
Yes, it follows the custard pie talent.
Yeah, and it's all about being fun, and because the more fun we are, the more approachable we look, and the more people talk to us. And at all times, the focus is that we want people to talk to us
True.
about whatever's bothering them or what they want to change. And if you make yourself look like, oh, that's someone that's fun and is happy to talk, like to take themselves less seriously, that's really helpful. So I really appreciate everyone for having a go.
Okay.
Will we be the first? Will be the first fun clip. Oh,
You're
no.
the first one with councillors in, yeah. Yeah.
There you go. Stars are born.
On that note, in terms of these social media reports, it was agreed, I guess a couple of years now, Mike wanted to have them quarterly. Do we still want to have them quarterly, or do we want to go down to maybe one a year? Just have sort of, it would probably have less detail, but it would be more of just an annual update to let you know how it's going.
Margaret?
Yeah, I think we probably don't need this detail every meeting. The only thing is, if there's no agenda item, then we can't maybe it's worth having an agenda item for any urgent issues in relation to social media or something, because something might have come up that we need to discuss, but we don't necessarily need the statistics, if you see what I mean.
Okay.
Just an enabling.
So keep the item on the agenda,
Yeah.
but maybe go to annual statistics review.
Yeah.
Is that agreeable with Martin?
Yeah, I was going to say maybe just highlight ones that don't meet the target.
Yeah.
Kind of, or exception reports are kind of high, but very high and very low.
Yeah, because
Okay.
the stuff in the middle is all just dross, isn't it?
It's not dross. It's all about presenting a friendly, approachable face.
Exactly, dross.
Yeah. But exception reports, yeah, Margaret?
Yeah, he likes to stir it. doesn't
I
he,
know.
this one?
I bet it's very bad.
Just to say, from my point of view, it would be helpful when, like Martin asked about the exceeded target. It would probably be helpful when you produce the report if we knew what the target was. if you see what I mean.
So, because there was an original report where I said what the targets would be, and I've just been mentioning it at the beginning of each of these. But if we're only doing an annual one, it's going to be quite.
Yeah.
Or if we're doing an exception report, that's going to be quite straightforward to add it in and say.
Okay, so we're agreeing that exception reports, particularly high or low, at every meeting that we do meet, but other than that, an annual report of various trends, followers, etc.
Yeah.
That's sufficient for our purposes.
Yeah.
It's a question of when in the annual cycle we do that then, isn't it? Are we looking at it?
Well, we've got one now. Why don't we do one a year from now? Just by happen chance.
Yeah.
So we'll make it the March meeting when we review, which is a good time anyway, because it's before the end of the financial year, before the end of the political year as well. Yeah.
So the other thing related to this, picking up on what John said about making all councillors aware that we might ask them to do video and things like that. Obviously the committee's been getting these reports for a while. You're quite up to date on what we're doing and how things work. It might be worth talking to full council in some way about what we're doing, partly as a way to encourage people to join this committee because we're a bit short on numbers, but also because I know that comms is coming up in other meetings sometimes, and to just give the whole council an overview of what we do, why we do it. Make it clear that there's a process and that if they'd like to get involved in setting the policy, they can join this committee.
Who decides the priority of importance of the various events? High, middle, low?
Officers meet.
You do?
We do, yeah.
All right. Okay.
Officers meet once a quarter.
Oh, right, that describes how, but on what criteria?
The criteria, so if you're talking about a physical event, you'd be considering multiple criteria, but probably the biggest one would be how many people we're expecting to be there. But it also might be how important that event is to our other goals.
Okay.
There can be practical considerations. So the Charter Fair, for example, isn't our event at all, but there's lots of practical stuff about road closures that we have to get out there, which means it's at least medium priority in any given year, because we need people to know what's going to go on with cars and parking and the road closure.
Okay.
So that's for events.
And also it does depend on, the cycle as well.
Yeah.
So if there's 4 events that month, then it's going to be harder to be a high profile event. Whereas in a slow period like March, for example, you're more likely to bump events up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you've got a lot of big events in quick succession, they cannot all be treated as big events. There has to be some balance between them and some measurement between them, because it's just becomes overwhelming and you're potentially going to put people off because you're shoving too much information at them.
Just become a blur.
Yeah. So that's something that we do have to balance and be quite careful about. And that's why we have such big conversations about it amongst the office. There's a lot of staff who are involved in those conversations so that everyone is comfortable with what's going to be going on. It isn't just about events, although this one was for that period. There was a lot of events in there. There's other things that come into it. So there'll be grants promotion every year. There'll be the things to do with the annual town meeting. Environmental projects obviously get a lot of time. They can quite often be treated as medium or low, but we have a lot of them over the year. If we have a consultation about something, those will all be considered within what we're doing. We try to make sure that we've covered as much as we possibly can, so that we plan for as much as we possibly can, and we don't suddenly have someone going, oh, but actually I've got this massive thing that people need to know about. Yeah, so there's a lot of discussion we do in the office before those decisions get made.
Okay. Martin?
Taking it to full council, why don't we ask each committee to put forward a communication representative?
To lead on that kind of discussion.
Well, to bring in from their committee to this committee communications and to feedback what we're doing as a whole over everything, so that when they have their committee meetings, there's somebody there that sort of is in touch with communications.
Go on, Margaret.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. But the only thing is, because when I joined CSG, I wasn't on resources, and I know I wasn't sure whether we should be on CSG because it's a subgroup of resources, isn't it? So would resources need to be the people who make that sort of decision, or have we got our?
No, so you've got, in terms of reference, you can invite other people to join. So you could invite non-councillors to join if you want to. You're asking people to commit to something else, and you're possibly setting up a bit of a process. But on the other hand, I can see the benefits of doing it.
Well, have we got anybody from TC&E yet?
You're
on it as mayor, but you've got a lot.
I was on it before.
Yeah.
Before I was mayor, but
Are you on TC&E? No, nor am I. Planning. I'm on planning. Yeah, I'm on planning. So I think planning is covered. Resources is
Environment and TC&E. Resources not too worried about.
Yeah, there's not much to promote, is there? Have we got anybody on? I'm on environment.
I'm not on environment, so the two main ones we communicate out of, and we don't have people from.
Well, maybe the presentation, if we're agreeing to that idea, is maybe saying we'd very much like to have some more representation from people on these two committees.
Yeah, I don't think it's a process. It's a thought.
It's an invitation.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
When we mention it at full council, hey.
Yeah.
Why don't you come join us?
I think people still join us as individuals, not as delegates. But just saying we're nice to have somebody from environment and from TC&E. Yeah.
one issue around at the moment is the fact that one will be that we're meeting during the working day, and that excludes people who have a normal working pattern.
I think within the offer, we'd have to say within it, we're really keen, if anybody wants to be involved in the current meeting times don't work for you, then let us know. And we'll find something that works for those who are interested. I think we'd have to make that offer.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any sense in changing meeting times on the off chance that it might help someone, because who knows?
It's just historically done during the day, isn't it?
Yeah. And it obviously works for officers, because you're more likely to get more of us in daytime.
Let's talk about the meeting times as well, because one of your ideas, Louise, is that we cut back on the number of meetings.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we're going to try and do all of the editing of the content for the next newsletter online this time around before we get to the next meeting. So traditionally, the way CSG meetings are set up is entirely around the newsletter schedule. So you have one meeting that's talking about content, and then the next one you talk about you edit the actual articles and then so on, which is why we've got 8 meetings a year, which I believe is more than any other committee.
It is, yeah.
And in order to encourage people to join, I'm quite keen to consider we cut it down, not necessarily to half. I think we need to look at our pattern of what reports we do and when would be sensible to meet. I think we would definitely want to have at least 4, maybe 6 committee meetings. But between them, perhaps we could have informal meetings occasionally if we felt we needed to, because we could do those online, as long as we weren't deciding any committee business. If it was just talking about something to do with editing of the newsletter, for example, we could do that as an informal meeting. That wouldn't need to be an in-person meeting. So if everyone's happy with that general idea, we can have another look at the usual pattern of reports and things and work out how many meetings we need, and then put forward a suggestion for how many meetings we would have in the future.
So you want to come back with a report then on this?
Well,
We can decide it now, but if you're saying you want to write a report.
I want to decide. We can decide that we're going to cut down. I don't want to say right now it'll definitely be these dates. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I get that. I mean, I guess what I'm thinking of, given what you've said, is that maybe having 4 meetings a year, but in between those meetings, having informal online workshops, called them editorial workshops, where we'll just sort out any differences that we might have on what, the next meeting on from this. So if we were to have this meeting as usual, this structured meeting, the next meeting would be a workshop online to just look at the editorial changes that have been made and just sign off on those. But as it's, that doesn't need to be a council decision on that. If it needs to be, we can call an emergency meeting if we need to make a firm council decision. We can always do that anyway, can't we?
So the next meeting is scheduled for the 6th of April. Is there any issue with the mayoral year in us doing that, Paul?
Sorry, say again.
So the next meeting is scheduled to be 6th of April. If we said we wanted that to be informal, are we going to have an issue with the mayoral year?
No.
Well, because we published it as a meeting in advance, you mean? We can always cancel.
You're staring at me blankly. I might be talking about the wrong thing.
What do you mean by the mayoral year?
Well, because the first meeting of the new year, we have to vote for all the new chair and vice chair, and so that one will have to be in person.
Yes, but that's not until May.
Oh,
Or
no,
even
of
start
course.
June, because we don't. Sorry.
I
Sorry,
know you're
that's-
confusing
yeah.
financial year with mayoral year.
Yeah, so the mayoral year really starts on the 10th of May or something like that.
Oh, right. So that's completely fine then, because then we would have an in-person meeting on the 6th of June.
Well, why don't we try that? It's always a good place. Why don't we arrange that the next meeting, scheduled for the 6th of April, is done online as an informal editorial workshop? Have we got time to get the presentation on a full council agenda before then?
28th of March.
Is that interim?
That's full council.
That's
Okay.
only the week before.
28th of March.
Is it?
Well, the week before, yes, it is 28th of March, but what I mean is it's only a week before the next meeting.
Just strike while the iron's hot in a sense, isn't
Yeah. Be quite handy for me if the 6th of April were online, because I probably wouldn't be able to come in person, but I might be able to come online. So.
Well, which will be good. Of course, we wouldn't need to worry so much about quorum if we're meeting
no.
informally, but
No.
obviously it would be good to have you there.
It would also mean, so if we went for that pattern that every other meeting was an informal online one, that would also mean that tricky one in July that we always struggle for attendees for could be online.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're saying full council meeting, you'll do a presentation
Yeah, okay.
and talk a bit about the structure and the plans ahead in social media in particular, and also use that as an opportunity to say, we really would like to have more people, and just to make it even easier for people that we're trialing out a mixture of informal editorial workshops and more formal meetings every other time. So we might find we don't need to have the informal workshop if the editing is minimal and there isn't much to do. You might say, we don't need to meet, guys, we're fine, we're okay, we can take this forward.
And obviously now we've switched over the IT migration, we use its Teams in Office. Do we still want to be using Zoom?
Yes.
Or do we want
Yes,
to
8 teams. Carry on with Zoom.
So I'm going to like it now. I have my initial.
Oh, Martin's become a fan.
What, Teams?
I'm afraid so.
I think there are other things I think in the office, we are taking it step by step. So we're making sure we know what we're doing first. And then looking at that. So we haven't yet done anything with councillors to really start exploring it fully. At some point we will do, because there are especially for CSG, actually there are things you could do which would make life much easier for everyone in reality in terms of having shared folders and access to stuff.
We're doing that.
I think there's other stuff we can do as well, probably, and you're probably the target committee to experiment a little bit.
Okay.
Especially having online meetings, then it might become a point where actually Teams is better. And according to David, Teams is going to be upgraded shortly anyway, so it might get better. And there are accessibility benefits, but not for the April meeting.
Margaret?
Yeah, I'm somebody else. I'm very comfortable with Zoom. I've learned how to use Zoom because I'm not an IT person, as you know. But I have used Teams because I've had to for various other meetings. The thing that immediately occurs to me is that if we were, it wouldn't be efficient to use both, would it? Because we presumably have to pay a hefty sum for Zoom.
£100 a year for the account, something like
Oh,
that.
it's not a huge amount.
And we're now paid up until next February or something.
Oh, okay. It's
so
just
we'll review it, come back.
It's-
So yes, logically at some point we'll just use Teams.
Yeah.
Because we're using Teams for everything else, so it would make sense. But to be honest, streaming meetings from Teams is harder than from Zoom, so we've not yet crossed that threshold.
For this though, because it's an informal meeting, we don't have to worry about streaming it anyway.
No, but then we've been using Zoom for our other meetings, haven't we? So that the general public can tune in. We wouldn't want to make that more difficult, would we?
No, absolutely.
Because that's one of the benefits of the pandemic, isn't it? We've got more engagement.
Okay, so Martin.
Just rewinding what Louise said. If we have every other meeting as an editorial one, and there's not much editorial to do, we wouldn't have meeting. But we would still need that meeting to decide on what we were going to put in the next newsletter.
No, we'll have this meeting.
Yeah, but we're having every other one.
I don't know what you think. I think the way CSG works, I'd be surprised if you have an interim where there's no editorial stuff to do.
What I'm saying is we will still need the meeting to decide in an editorial way what we want in the next newsletter.
No, because those would be the meetings we have in person.
Oh, I see.
Because there's 4 meetings a year where we decide what's in the next newsletter. We have all of those in person.
Right.
Yeah.
So if this is the Type A meeting
Right.
that we're having today, deciding
Type
what's going
B
to
will
be.
be.
So Type A will always be a formal meeting, streamed online under usual rules and everything else,
Right.
or everything and so forth. But the Type B meeting, where we come to edit things and just agree what's going to go where and stuff like that. That can be done informally as an editorial workshop.
I think if that's the case, what's the point of anybody joining if they can only meet the online ones, because they're only going to get sucked into what's already been decided and editorial deficiencies.
No, we want them to attend all the meetings.
Yeah, but they won't be able to maybe because they work through the day.
I think,
Well, no, we can change the time of the online workshops.
But we were saying maybe if we alternated, we wouldn't have to change it because they could meet at least some, because it'd be off online.
yeah, I understand what you mean. I think we're both.
But all those online ones are just editorial ones, not real gutsy meeting.
Yeah, but we can change the time of this meeting if someone says, I really want to be on the comms.
Yes,
But I cannot make a daytime
and they're a really good counsellor, which of course they all are.
And we might decide, okay, on that basis, we'll shift over to, I don't know,
Yeah. Wednesday night.
Tuesday evening, or Wednesday evening, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that won't be wild for the officers involved, but if that's what it takes, then we'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so is everybody happy?
I think we're all agreed. Let me just recap. So we're going to have 8 meetings a year for the time being.
Yeah.
But we're going to try it first. The next meeting we'll have will be online and informal using a Zoom.
Yeah.
And we'll use that space to just verify the edits that we'll have put in previously using the new software that we have for the new email system. And then the following meeting will be, as usual, back around the table, formal rules, etc. And we'll also agenda an item then saying, did that work okay? And if it worked okay, then we'll establish that as the way that we carry on working.
Yeah.
Yeah. And meanwhile, you'll prepare a sparkly report before council, whereby suddenly we'll have 20 people. There we are. Well, maybe have 1 or 2 more people, particularly from perhaps, women who like to wear environment hat or a TCE hat around the table as well. Okay, agreed. And so we note the report otherwise. Item 8, press releases. Again, I think we just need to note this. We're not editing them or anything like that. We seem to be producing far more press releases than we ever used to, though.
I think we've got a good system going, yeah. But happy for any comments on things we're missing, things we're overdoing, the way press releases read.
Well, we don't drive the press releases from here, do we?
No, they're
driven by the full main committees.
mostly by committees and partly by the office on things that can be out of process.
Martin?
On the numbering of press releases, would it be good to have 263/22?
Yeah.
Well, at the moment, they're just numbered sequentially, and I don't know whether that may cause a problem when we go into the 3-digit figures, or whether we reset the numbering back to 0.
Sure, it's just sequential numbers, come.
We have got a press release register. So we have got a spreadsheet with all the press releases with the number and the date, and when it was published, and when it was issued, and when it appeared in paper. So we can refer back to that to get the date for all of them. So I would say it's working as it is.
Okay.
You can reference it back.
But you can reference it back on the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Maybe the computer system, if you wanted to find something in a particular year, wouldn't be able to filter it when you go on a web page and looked at the press releases.
We've not got a web page that just lists all the press releases, have we?
No, so we release press releases on the website as blog posts.
Oh dear.
It would use a lot of space, Margaret.
Yeah, I was just going to, picking up what Paul just said about when they're in the paper. So do you mean that, because do they all end up in the paper, or only you keep a record of which ones have made it?
We are doing now, yeah.
Yeah.
Back in the day, somebody in the office would cut articles out of the paper, so there was a scrapbook of all the town council related articles. That stopped some time ago, and we haven't gone back to doing that because life's a bit short, to be honest. Well, that kind of be nice. But I think now at least logging what goes in. I mean, for the advertiser, it depends what else is going on, what Hannah thinks is interesting. We've had to kind of I mean, Hannah is lovely and really helpful. And then sometimes other people in the advertising get involved with different approaches, and you've got to kind of guess what they want at the time. And some things just too busy, and then some things like this week it was the Storm Eunice impact. Hannah's chased us for because she really wanted it, even though we thought we'd missed it. It wasn't worth doing, so we had that kind of conversation with her. Although obviously, we still keep trying to remember that the advertiser isn't as a bigger proportion of life as it used to be.
So, yeah, and we do work on what we're doing with other people as well. So we've just had some really helpful conversations about how we can improve the coverage we get on radio, for example. So that will get built into our plans of what we're doing in order to make sure we have the content that radio wants, because they want different kinds of content to a print newspaper does or an online source.
So, for example, audio.
Yeah, so audio will be something that we start working on more. There's also a variety of sort of online blog is not the right way of phrasing this at all, but online services that promote the local area, and what they want again is different. So there's a balance between all of those things. Sometimes when we send out a press release, we know the paper's not really going to be interested, but other people will be.
Do we publish all of our press releases on our social media?
Yes, they always go on our social media.
Right.
Not necessarily on the day they went out as press releases, depends what it is.
Okay.
It might not say press release, but the content goes.
Is there an archive on the website of all our press releases?
No, not really formally, because as I say, we release them as blog posts, but because we release them as blog posts, our current website, I'm sure you've all noticed this, the search function is awful, apart from for blog posts. It's really good for blog posts. So by releasing them all that way, that means that if you search for anything we might have sent a press release about, it will come up.
So the blogs are all there then?
Yeah.
So all the press releases are in blog form as well?
And we'll be moving those. Yeah.
So they are, but you can't go to a page. You can't say, I want to see what the press release is and go and choose what you want to look at. You've got to search for the blog that you're looking for and you'll find it.
Yeah.
So there is a question for the new website about, do we need a list of
I think
press
it would be
releases
good.
or news items, which then links through to other things?
It depends who you think the audience for that would be. So typically a resident or a journalist or whoever wanted to find out something about us, they wouldn't go looking for a press release page, because that's effectively you doing a manual search. You're looking for something in particular, and then you're going down a list looking for what it is. They're more likely to use the search box. So that's generally how I would.
Okay, all right.
Look to
Well, on
focus.
blogs you can search, but yours is usually a list of things on the blog. I don't blog very much these days, but blogs when I have done, you can see all the entries down one side.
Yeah, and you can utilize tagging
Could we
and
do
things
that
like
with
that.
our blog?
So we could change it. So one really easy thing to do is we could tag all of the blog posts that are press releases as press releases.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do that, for example.
Yeah.
I think that's relatively easy to do. I mean, I take your point about people not necessarily wanting to see the full list. And it is here anyway, attached to this agenda.
We produce a lot of press releases, so it would rapidly become an extremely long list, and I'm not sure how helpful that is.
We don't also log FOIs either, do we? I know we don't get many of those, do we?
We do internally.
We do log them internally. I think we've only had one since I've been here. I don't think we ever published that publicly because it was so problematic.
Yeah.
And actually it wasn't.
also publish FOIs anyway.
You don't have to, but I think you should.
I think we probably should actually somehow have a web page for FOIs, because they're more. Why not?
Start with a new one.
Yeah. I'm going to do retrospective because, like I said, we haven't had one for a long time. And FOIs, you're tended, when I used to get FOIs other places, it tended either to be someone just doing a fishing expedition, and we don't get those. So for when I worked for Buckinghamshire County, you would get someone who'd done an FOI to every county council, just as a way of getting information, which is annoying. We don't get those. And apart from that, it's usually somebody who doesn't feel like they're getting what they want. So at the moment, we haven't got anyone who's in that the council's hiding something from me and I want to find it. And one way of avoiding having those people is by being as honest and open and transparent as you can anyway, because then, so all our meetings on YouTube for the boots.
Yeah.
I mean, the Shire Council, unlike other upper tier councils, doesn't have a system for publishing all of its FOI. And the reason, therefore, I use the What Do They Know website, my FOIs, is then it makes it public, is that I can send them a link to see the correspondence, whereas there isn't that facility yet for Buckinghamshire Council. They say they're working on it for the new system that they will contract at some point, but currently you can't go onto the Buckinghamshire Council website and find any FOIs that are on, say, road potholes or something. You know, there will be a list somewhere of all the pothole inquiries that the council have had, but we can't access that unless you initiate another FOI to ask for that information. But yeah, let's put that into the melting pot for the new website. then.
I've made a note, so
Okay.
we can add that to the
All right.
list for the
Okay.
meeting, yeah.
Okay, enough on that, folks? Yeah, okay. I don't have any chairs items, so I was going to bring up another frequency of meetings, but we've dealt with that.
John, can I just add one thing?
Yes?
Sorry, I've just noticed that Councillor Armour gave her apologies before the meeting.
Oh,
Because I
right, okay.
was in a meeting, I didn't spot it till just now.
Oh, okay, fine. Well, back that into the minutes then.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. The date of the next meeting is at 2 p.m, but online as an informal workshop on Wednesday, the 6th of April. Okay?
Yep.
Fine, I will close the meeting down, please.